It's time for his weekly visit. The doctor is in the house.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs right here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for KENS 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed that World Cup yesterday, Argentina and France. Woo! I'm not a big soccer fan, but even that had my attention. But hey, Spurs are back in business tonight. They are taking on the Houston Rockets. We'll probably have more on that game tomorrow after the conclusion of it. But yeah, another visit by Dr. Ryan McCorkle right here on Locked On Spurs. We're going to go over the recent Spurs injury report, which is, as of this recording, the one before the Heat game versus Miami in Mexico City. We're going to be talking about playing in Mexico City and what that does for the body. Pair of Spurs are back from the injury list. It looks like Wesley and Poeltl are back in action. And yes, we're going to have to talk about sneakers again. Perhaps Dr. Ryan McCorkle wants to rather just do the whole entire show about that, huh, Doctor? Welcome back to Locked On Spurs.
Hey, it's a highlight of my week to be with you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And it was a highlight for you last week, too, when a lot of Spurs fans really enjoyed your sneaker segment.
Oh, man, it's always a good time to talk sneakers with folks, and I got a lot of people talking on Twitter and Instagram about it, and those are always fun conversations to talk about being a sneakerhead.
Yeah, well, we're going to do that again on this episode of Locked On Spurs. Everybody, thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. So once again, everybody, full disclosure, this is recorded before the Spurs injury list gets released ahead of tonight's game versus the Rockets. So keep that in mind. There's a lot less to talk about. The only one to talk about in this first segment is Romeo Langford, Doctor. He sat out the game versus Miami with a left ankle sprain. And I know you talked about that a lot on Locked On Spurs, saying that's the Ryson approach. Let me see if I can do it now again. Okay, that's rest, ice, compression, elevation, non-steroidal drugs.
Oh, man, you got it this week, Jeff.
I got it this week, yeah. So basically, Doctor, that just means he just needs to chill out for a while, right?
That's right. I mean, ankle sprains are the bane of a basketball player's existence, right? When you have played and you see that ankle roll, there's nothing. You feel nauseous for that person because you can definitely have true empathy. You feel that pain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty common, pretty simple treatment, and he'll be back in a matter of days.
Exactly, and yeah, that's it. No major injuries, knock on wood, for the silver and black. But there's actually some good news. And perhaps the big news right now is Jakob is back after weeks of being shelved due to the right knee bone bruise. He is back. He played against the Heat and was on limited minutes. Were you surprised about that, Doctor, that Popovich announced that Poeltl was only going to play about a max 20 minutes?
Well, I think they've been slow playing it with Jakob coming back. So it's not too surprising that they're going to thought about limiting his minutes whenever they did work him back into the lineup because he was out for an extended period of time. Given that injury, they were clearly giving him some extra time, but need him back on the floor for the Mexico City showcase for the fans. He's one of our best players, and also before the trade deadline, get some other teams to see what he can do. Yeah,
exactly. And look, Jakob played well. Devin Vassell said after the loss to Miami that he saw that Poeltl definitely needs more time to get reacclimated to the NBA game. And it was funny during the broadcast, Sean Elliott talked about Poeltl coming back, and he kept, and you could probably just double down on this, Doctor. Elliott was just saying that Poeltl can ride the bike all he wants, run on the treadmill all he wants, do whatever he needs to do in practice. He goes, but there is no substitute for playing in an in-game situation to get your conditioning back. Your thoughts on that, Doctor?
Oh, man, there is no shape like NBA shape. And when you add on top of that trying to come back at a game at altitude in Mexico City, I mean, that's going to be even harder. His conditioning was already down from the injury and not being out there. And then to come back and to have to play at altitude, I'm sure that was a big challenge for his cardiovascular fitness. And we've talked previously about how it is difficult. The shape, basketball shape is a different shape than anything else. You can be training for a marathon. I mean, that's what I did. I used to do triathlon, marathon, and then when you go back to play basketball, if you hadn't played in a while, you're probably in your best cardiovascular shape, getting ready to run 26.2 miles, but it does not translate. You get out there on the basketball floor, and the stop-start, that kind of shape is just different, and you are gassed. And even when you have other people, swimmers, elite athletes, who are very well trained cardiovascularly, they come out and try to play basketball, and boy, they are gassed after 3 times up and down the floor. So basketball shape is unique to the sport.
Yeah, it really is. And you saw it a little bit with Poeltl, and it didn't help too. And we'll talk about this in the next segment, that Poeltl's first game back is in an altitude level in Mexico City. So, wow, he really, really came back. It was a joke during the broadcast. Again, Sean Elliott saying, he goes, this is probably the one game where players are not going to complain about getting minutes, Doctor. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I mean, this is why our Olympic athletes, train in Colorado Springs, training at altitude just gives you an advantage. And then when you don't play at altitude, and then both these teams, Miami's sea level, San Antonio's close to it, both these teams go down to Mexico City and play at altitude. You can see them pulling on the bottom of the shorts, hands over the head, can't wait for each TV timeout just to get a break, because the air at altitude has less oxygen content. And so each breath that you take in, you're not delivering as much oxygen to your tissues. And when you're trying to compete as an elite athlete and you're not delivering that same amount of oxygen to your tissues, they are just literally gassed quickly. And when you train at altitude for long periods of time, like the Olympic athletes, what happens is your blood begins to produce more hemoglobin, which is what carries the oxygen in your blood, so that it can harvest more of the oxygen per breath and deliver it to those tissues by increasing the amount of hemoglobin in your blood. And that's why athletes train at altitude, so that they, are naturally are blood doping. So they're getting more hemoglobin in their blood by training at altitude. And when they come back down to sea level, they feel amazing and can really perform at a high level.
He is Dr. Ryan McCorkle. Follow him on Twitter at Austin ER Doc. He is an ER Doc at St. David's Medical Center and the Austin Emergency Center, and also with the Backstage Medical and Concierge Practice. When we get back, we're going to dive into Wesley coming back, touch on more about playing in altitude. I got some questions about that with Dr. Ryan McCorkle right here on Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, I want to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app you need to get to right now. So how does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go on to score more or less than the Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's basketball, on the college level, that is, women's college basketball, soccer, and much, much more, including Eurobasket, cricket, and as said, a lot more. Which is going to be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. Currently operation over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Picks apps or go to prizepicks.com right now to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users get 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit 100, they'll give you 100. You deposit 50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And I also want to talk to you about Turo. Turo is the largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or a budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Get that classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find an affordable economy car. If you're on a budget, you just want to go to point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits into your daily life. Many Turo hosts can deliver the car right to you. Yeah, that's an option as well. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars. Find your new drive over at Turo.com. We are back right here with Dr. Ryan McCorkle. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at AustinERDoc. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen every day. Check out Locked On Sports today, available on YouTube, wherever you else get your podcast. So, Doctor, we have other good news is Blake Wesley is back. It didn't jump right back to the San Antonio team. He's actually spending time with the Austin team right now. It's a different approach. Like with Poeltl, he came off the injuries, boom, right to San Antonio uniform. Zach Collins came off injury list, straight to San Antonio. But with Wesley, they're doing a different approach, Doctor. Put him with the G League. Why do you think that is?
There may be more of a physical component there to his actual injury, and we're trying, working with the knee and wanting him to not have to compete against that level of competition right off the bat. So it's less a cardiovascular thing than it is actual structural in his knee that we want to have him play at a little lower level of competition to start off before moving into the full demands of an NBA game on an injured knee.
Yeah, he's been with the Austin Spurs, played a couple of games already. I think he even played in Mexico City against the Mexico City G League team, the Capitanes. So little by little, he's coming back. He looks good. Doesn't look anywhere at all. And I think there's also the fact that because you mentioned the severity of his injury, and plus two, unlike Poeltl and Collins, he's not an NBA vet, Doctor. He'll probably need that extra reps before making some sort of impact with San Antonio down the road, Doctor.
That's right. If I had to, engage in conjecture like we do, I would say, Wesley is more of a long-term asset. And we're looking to cultivate him to stay here. And like you said, Zach and Jakob are veterans and may be shopped around near the trade deadline, and other teams want to see them against NBA competition. Wesley, we're looking for holding that asset long term and getting him back healthy slower to stay here on the Spurs and be part of the young core going forward. Because they did still put him back in at Mexico City, so he was still playing at altitude and getting that, cardiovascular challenge of being down there. But he was just playing at a lower level of competition that may have less demands on that knee.
Right. Yeah, so there's good news right there for Spurs fans, and especially for Wesley fans, Doctor, because the last time we chatted, last week, fans were getting antsy to see Wesley back. Well, he is back, so for those fans, we're starting to worry about young Blake. Looks like he is fine. But I want to talk to you more about the Mexico City elevation thing. There's a lot of talk about Mexico City perhaps getting an expansion NBA team. Now, there's already a G League team there. But, north of the border, Toronto has one. In Canada, the NBA is looking south of the border with Mexico. But how big of an issue is that going to be in, as far as the elevation is concerned, should the NBA grant an expansion team? You gotta think like those players might have a physical advantage when they play away games. You get what I'm trying to get at, Doctor? You'd feel like their condition would be a lot better than perhaps other NBA players.
Right. So, but I guess that would be on par with the advantage that Denver has, the Nuggets, whenever they, come and play away. But I think your distinct advantage is your home court advantage. Mm-hmm. When players come up there, that's the adjustment. They've been training and doing everything at sea level or thereabouts, and then to go to only play there a couple of times a year, it's going to be a distinct advantage on the home floor for those folks, even more so than when they come down to sea level. The way the teams are just going to be completely gassed when they have to go play there. But yeah, it'd be a great fan base. It's a great population center, for the NBA to expand. And you're going to be an expansion team. It's going to be a struggle for several years. So any advantage they can get, we're probably not going to see for several years as they ramped up a team. But yeah, playing at altitude when folks come to your building, it's a big advantage. Even just playing low level college basketball, we had to play against Colorado College in Colorado Springs. And I mean, they weren't even a very good team, but they never lost at home because everybody who has to go play there, even just in the warm-up lines, you're just bent over, hands on shorts, dying. So Mexico City, would enjoy that advantage as well.
I notice in outside sports, especially long distance running, there's always tends to be South American runners that tend to excel. There's even I believe there's a Netflix documentary on this lady, this middle-aged woman that lived somewhere in, I'm going to guess, like Guatemala or Ecuador or something like that. And she just got the itch one day to run a marathon, and she won it like convincingly. Talk about that advantage of the body. What does the body go through when you're walking, running, playing sports at a higher elevation?
Yeah, that's we were talking about. How that's why we send our Olympic athletes to train in the Olympic Village in Colorado Springs. Is that when you're at altitude, your blood starts to produce more hemoglobin, so that you can carry more oxygen to your tissues. And when you're there for a period of months, you do acclimatize completely, and your blood has more of that hemoglobin concentration. And when you come back down to the sea level, it's an oxygen rush because you have so much more carrying capacity for oxygen with that elevated amount of hemoglobin in your blood, and they can just perform at a much, much higher level. Now we have things that can reproduce those conditions now. The oxygen restricting masks that a lot of people train with, a lot of the NBA players in the last couple of years were experimenting with those. It can be very annoying and disconcerting, and it kind of fell out of favor after a year or two. But it was trying to mimic those same conditions with oxygen restriction at sea level, so that you start to produce more hemoglobin. But it's got to be something that's done constantly over the course of weeks and months to really get that physiologic change in your body.
Is it those Bane looking masks, like Bane from Batman series? Is it?
That's
Does it
right.
look like? I think I've seen those where some guys wearing those at the gym, wearing like these Bane looking masks. Yeah,
it's not going to work for you unless you wear it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so I think people have started to realize that.
Yeah, but you look at the just playing in an elevation. You mentioned Denver, the Nuggets, they call it the Mile High City. Their hashtag is Mile High Basketball. So there you have it. I've never experienced that feeling of playing at higher elevation or just walking or running at higher elevation. Have you, Doctor? What does it feel like?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. When I was in college at Austin College, we played Colorado College in Colorado Springs. And we would go, and I mean, it's a totally different game. You win by 20 easily playing at a neutral site or at home, and you go to their floor, and they did not lose at home because literally just going through layup lines before the game, and you're just drenched in sweat, bent over, grabbing the bottom of your shorts or hands on your head, just struggling to breathe like you are totally out of shape. And you're like, you've heard about it, you've read about it, you've seen it on television, but experiencing firsthand is a totally different animal. You're just like, what is wrong with me? What is going on with my body?
Yeah.
And I'm so starved for breath with minimal exertion.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think twice next time I set my treadmill on level 2 incline. I'm thinking it's probably nothing. This is nothing close to Mile High experience or Mexico City experience playing at higher elevation. But yeah, it's funny because Vassell afterwards, after the loss, spoke with media, and he was asked if he wouldn't mind playing more games in Mexico City. And you would think his answer would have been no. Like, keep that arrow to yourselves. But he said, yeah, that he's all for it. So I don't know. It looks like, yeah, he's going to have to say
I think
that,
the NBA would be real upset if he had any other answer besides that.
Yeah, but all in all, it was a good visit for the Spurs in Mexico City. We learned a little bit about the elevation on the body. You did see that during the game. I think Sean Elliott kept on noticing it too, calling the game, saying like, "Oh, he's grabbing his shorts. Oh, look, he's grabbing. They're putting their hands on their hips a little earlier in the game." So he was catching it. So yeah, it must be one big impact on the body. Hey, we're not done talking with Dr. Ryan McCorkle. When we get back, we're going to dive into some sneaker news. Yeah, we learned that Dr. Ryan is a big sneakerhead. We're going to talk to him about the latest sneaker news involving your silver and black and much, much more. But before we do that, hey, look, we all know how ExpressVPN protects your privacy and security online, right? But here's something you may not know. You can also use ExpressVPN to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. Maybe you run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. This will change your world. ExpressVPN allows you to binge The Office on UK Netflix, for example. It's so simple to do. You just sign into Netflix, fire up the ExpressVPN app, change the location to the UK, refresh Netflix, and that's it. ExpressVPN lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. You can choose from almost 100 different countries. So just imagine all the Netflix libraries you can go through. Love Korean dramas? Use ExpressVPN to watch Parasite. Or if you want to just dip it to South Korean Netflix with your Netflix subscription, you can do that too. But it's not just with Netflix. ExpressVPN works with any streaming service, Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube, you name it. Hundreds of VPNs out there, but the reason I use ExpressVPN is to watch shows and more because it's ridiculously fast. There's never any buffering or lag. You can just stream in HD, no problem. ExpressVPN also works on all your devices, iPhones, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and so much more. So you can watch what you want on the big screen or on the go. So if you want to get access to hundreds of new shows, go to expressvpn.com/lockedon right now. You can get yourself an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. That's expressvpn.com/lockedon. expressvpn.com/lockedon to learn more.
Autobots, roll out.
And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs with Dr. Ryan McCorkle. Follow him on Twitter at AustinERDoc and on Instagram at AustinEMDoc. He is an ER doc at St. David's Medical Center and the Austin Emergency Center and with the Backstage Medical and Concierge Medicine practice. So, Doctor, your favorite time of the show, which is some sneaker news. And I shared one with you recently, and that is Blake Wesley announced that he is signing with Adidas basketball. Your thoughts on that?
Well, that is great for him. You know, it may not be my, preferred sneaker line, but I am, ecstatic to see a Spurs player get to sign with a major shoe company and get their own signature shoe. So that's a big deal, and I'm super happy for him. The Adidas signature line in the last few years, has been maybe a little lackluster for sneakerheads as far as collecting. James Harden and D Rose and Damian Lillard have been kind of their main players with signature shoes, and they've been a little less popular. So, I mean, it may not be the same as, Luka being with Jordan Brand or, right, some of those. Yeah. His Luka One signature is pretty popular, pretty hot right now. And I like that. The Adidas signature, though, has a legacy with the Spurs. Tim Duncan had several really nice Adidas signature shoes back when he was playing, but he also started out with Nike with those foam posits that were pretty awesome. But he had some good signature shoes with them with Adidas. That was back when Adidas still had the NBA contract too. So that's now Nike has it. But good for Blake. I'm glad he's going to get a signature shoe, and maybe he'll bring us something that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think it was Reebok. They tried to bring back Duncan's those foam posits. I think it was Reebok, or they had some version of that. They tried to bring it back. I don't think it sold well because if I remember correctly, they were very clunky and chunky. I remember that look to it, like just clunky and heavy, like a heavy shoe. So
yeah, Reebok really took off with the Iverson Answers. That's been their real big signature shoes, and they brought that back. The foam posit was a Nike shoe that Antonio Daniels and Tim used to wear a lot during his first two years in the league, and it was a nice silhouette. But yeah, the Reeboks were pretty big and chunky, like you said.
Absolutely. And, and other Spurs sneaker news, and I brought it to your attention the last time around, but now, I remember the name and I showed you a sample of it. Keldon Johnson signed with a Chinese shoe company called, forgive me if I'm butchering this, everybody, Quidon, Quidon. He was wearing them for the Mexico City games. You could see it had the Mexican color flags on his sneakers. He was wearing the sweater and post game or pre game. But the point is, another NBA player signing with a company outside of the U.S. It's not as dominant, because it's still Nike, Jordan, Adidas, blah blah blah. So now it's New Balance with Kawhi. But why do you think players go overseas to sign with a sneaker company?
I think this is the answer to just about every question in life, isn't it? It's about money.
Exactly.
And you don't blame them. There's only so many signature shoes to go around. So, and you need some competition in the market. So good for them that they're going out there and doing it. And the NBA is huge in China, and that is, even a way bigger market than the U.S. and brings in so much money. So you've seen Klay Thompson, Dwayne Wade, both signed with Chinese gear companies, and my Mandarin's rusty, so I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the name of the company. But I think that's why you've seen a lot of shoes just go crazy in China. Even if you remember back those Starberries that that Stephon Marbury had, they were terrible in the U.S., but I mean, he killed it in the China market. So there's definitely a market out there for it. And that's why you're seeing a lot of NBA players sign with the Chinese shoe companies.
I got to look at those new Keldon Johnson Quidon shoes, and they're definitely different. They're very different. I think the first photo released, it had like a label on it, and it had like a label like the size of the shoe. What normally would be inside the sneaker was outside the sneaker. They look kind of bulky, but so far as of this recording, Doctor, they have not been released to the U.S. market. But will Dr. Ryan McCorkle be adding those shoes to his awesome collection that he shared with Spurs fans? And everybody went nuts with Doctor, talking sneakers for the whole day. Doctor, tell us.
Oh, man, it was a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed interacting with the Spurs fans, talking about sneakers. When you're passionate about something and something you really enjoy, you can kind of tell that you get more engaged and really enjoy having those conversations. So sharing my sneakers and talking with other folks about their collections and getting to see what they like and the differences in what suits our fancy and what we like. Doesn't have to just be hype beast. I want what everybody else wants, but the things that other individual Spurs fans really enjoy wearing and collecting. That's a lot of fun. I like to hear those different perspectives.
Yeah, I think there was one fan that was chatting with you about his collection and like how he wouldn't wear them or he wore them. It was something to that effect, or just saying. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a term that may be more or less acceptable or derogatory of garage queens, of people who collect shoes and just let them sit in a box in their garage or their attic or whatever, because it's just about the collecting. I don't want to pass judgment on whatever makes somebody else happy. If that's what they enjoy in their collection, that's fine. But I choose to wear mine. And when I turned 40, I was just like, am I just going to, go the rest of my life with all this sneaker collection just sitting in boxes, in my garage? It's like, I'm going to enjoy them. I'm going to wear them and wear them around. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Nice collection. I didn't realize how vast it was. You started sending just photo after photo after photo. And I think even one Spurs fan sent you like drooly emoji faces, like, "Oh my God, what you got there?" And one was just listing down everything you have, saying like, "Oh, that's the such and such, and that's the such and such." So you definitely hit.
I think we talked about it's mostly when I do the backstage and concierge medical practice, that a lot of the artists are really generous with knowing that I'm a sneaker collector, and when they have contracts with Nike and get those sneakers for free, they pass along things to me that I would never be able to afford or get on my own. So my collection has really grown through that avenue more than anything else, because I don't have it like that, but a lot of these shoes that I've been able to collect were because they were gifts from those artists, and I feel very grateful and lucky, and that was part of the reason why I wear them as well. Is when they were gifts, they'll say, these shoes are individually numbered. There's 12,000 pair. We know which number it is that you've been given. I want you to wear these and enjoy them. I do not want to see them on eBay or StockX or GOAT or Flight Club, being resold. And we'll know because of the individual numbers. So wear them, enjoy them. They're a gift, but don't resell them. So that's why I wear them and enjoy them.
Well, there you have it. He is Dr. Ryan McCorkle right here on Locked On Spurs. And tell us what's going on over at Backstage. What you got cooking?
Got a lot of concerts coming to town here at Stubbs and ACL Live, and especially at the Moody Center. So, when they call and ask for a doc, I get to go there and help keep them healthy, get them on the stage, and then get to hang out for a lot of these shows that I really enjoy, because one of my other passions besides collecting sneakers is definitely music, and live music in particular. That's why I live in the live music capital of the world in Austin, Texas. And getting to get to know some of these artists and get to hang out backstage there and see that environment is just a big perk of the job. So it's taking years to get here, but it's really, I'm enjoying it right now.
Absolutely. Once again, make sure to follow him on Twitter at AustinERDoc on Twitter, and on Instagram at AustinEMDoc. I remember this time, Doctor. I remembered. At AustinEMDoc for Instagram. And yeah, go there, especially the Instagram page, because his sneaker collection is on full display. Check out what he has. It will be worth it. We thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. And for a second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the latest episodes right now on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, just like Locked On Spurs YouTube page, Ken's 5 Plus app. The list goes on and on. So for Dr. Ryan McCorkle, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.